here's how they're gonna get them, dude. And this is why I believe we're moving way closer to this being like a minor league with a salary cap. We're just moving towards that. I think it's going to be the NIL that forces them into a contract.
You're listening to the Football Scholarship Podcast, the playbook for parents and athletes who want to secure the best football scholarships possible. From securing a D1 football scholarship in the SEC at Ole Miss at just £5,700, myself, to helping 83% of the athletes I mentor achieve football scholarship offers and 42% going Division I. I've learned countless lessons that I'll be sharing right here with you. Join me and my co-host Brian Overton, who has 15 years of D1 college football recruiting experience, as we interview top experts, successful athletes, and discuss current recruiting trends. Together, we'll help you navigate the recruiting process so you too can achieve your dream of running out of that tunnel in front of 100,000 screaming fans.
What's going on? This is Richie Contartesi with my co-host Brian Overton, who has 15 years of Division I recruiting experience. And today we're going to be talking about the fact that the NCAA is eliminating national letter of intent. They call it the NLI. And this is coming with the new House settlement. This is a really important topic right now because National Signing Day is upon us. We have the early signing day. We have the late signing day period. And a lot of people are wondering now, the fact that there isn't a letter of intent, are we actually canceling National Signing Day? And if we're not canceling National Signing Day, what the heck are we doing on the quote unquote signing day? And what can you do as a parent or a high school football player to take advantage of what this is, to understand it, to be prepared for contracts, because I believe that's what's coming, and go from there. So really loaded conversation today, and I'm really excited to get the ball rolling. So Brian, what's up, man? Good to see you.
Good to see you, brother.
So what was so funny, man? I was just going on and on about the NLI.
No, it's just like we were talking a little bit earlier, it's just, I think everybody's just so used to it. It's been around for so long, and now you just up and say, okay, we're not doing it anymore. And the people that know a little bit about actually what the NLI is are like, well, how the heck is that going to work? And the people that didn't are like, well, what the heck was that anyway? Like, I don't even know what that is.
So why don't we start with that? Let's just start at the top, right? What is a national letter of intent?
Yeah. So what it used to be, it obviously no longer exists anymore. What it used to be is exactly what it says. So it was a binding document unless there were unusual circumstances. But what it did, if you signed a national letter of intent to a certain school, that legally binded you to that school. Okay. That meant that's where you were going. It was an official document, like I said, unless certain circumstances came up, you couldn't get out of it, and change your mind after you signed it. You could, but then you'd have to go through a waiver process.
And it was a year.
9.
I said, and it was for a year, right?
Yeah, all the scholarships are 1 year renewable, but for that point in time, your next year you were going to school there. You were locked into that school. And so that's what you sent in on National Signing Day, and that's the only, and it also triggered compliance rules too. So a school could not technically talk about you by name until you signed your national letter of intent. So they could not go out in the media and say, hey, yeah, we're recruiting Richie. He's out in Las Vegas and we really like him. None of that could happen until you signed your national letter of intent. And then they can officially release things through social media or whatever the case may be, graphics with your name on it and things like that. None of that could happen until you signed the national letter of intent, because then you were technically locked into that school. So that was the premise behind it originally. That is what the national letter of intent was used for, because once somebody signed them, they were definitely off the board and could not be recruited by anybody else. And again, if you did try to get
what about school?
There was a huge waiver process.
Well, what about schools that are posting for example, Ole Miss flipped Caleb Cunningham 5 stars from Alabama to Ole Miss. I like how I use that as an example. But I mean, they're posting like committed with the big graphic and all that stuff. How are they able to do that?
You're talking about like from like a Ole Miss page?
Yeah. Oh, you're right. It's not an Ole Miss
Well,
page. It's a it's like
I
report
promise you it's not.
it's reporters and stuff. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
I promise you it's not from their football page.
Hey man, I got a lot to learn. I
Yeah.
got a lot to learn.
Yeah, I promise you, that's the fastest way to get to get yourself in a bind is on social media. That's why they're very particular about it. So you'll never see any coaches post about stuff like that. Anything that's connected to the school.
Well,
Now I don't know with now the financial agreement if the same thing will apply. I'm pretty sure it will because you get into a really messy situation if you're able to openly talk about guys you're recruiting and things like that. It can just get messy. But back to what we were talking about, that was what the national letter of intent was originally designed to
yeah.
be.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I mean, what about this? You see Pete Golding, he posts like the shark every time he gets a commitment, and that's it. So
Yep.
that's his way of like doing it without.
You can post whatever you want as long as you don't post their name. I see guys post just landed a big fish from the state of
Yeah,
Nevada.
yeah.
Well, the state of Nevada is really big, so they'll do creative stuff like that. I used to use the eye emoji and like the little stock
Oh, this
market
one?
thing,
This one?
going up and no, just yeah, either that one or like the big eyes
Oh, okay.
one, and stuff like that. I had one that I did. I had one that I did every year, and then our fans kind of knew something good was happening. They may not have known exactly what it was. So people do creative stuff like that all the time, just to create buzz.
Yeah.
But as long as they're not talking about them specifically, they're fine.
So, all right. So now my thoughts are like, okay, they had to get rid of the national letter of intent because guys can enter the portal twice a year, every year, right? And if you have a 1 year contract, well, that doesn't work, right? Um,
Yeah, it just doesn't make any
yeah.
sense
So
anymore.
here's the first thing, like there's I mean if you read on the house settlement, right, which we've talked a lot about on different segments, there's going to be contracts, right? Like you got to have something in place, right? So what are they signing on National Signing Day now?
To my understanding, and talking to some guys, and then obviously there's some information, a little bit of information out on it. So even when there was the national letter of intent, you also signed a financial aid agreement, which essentially just says, "Hey, we're paying for your school." You're basically signing your name to your full scholarship, which was
Yeah.
pretty standard
Yeah. Yeah.
procedure. The NLI obviously outweighed that, but what it sounds like what they're going to me is, and this is not off topic, but because it relates to what we're talking about, but a lot of people don't know. So in the transfer portal, when you get a transfer portal player, okay, he can, like, say I've got him on my campus and he commits to me and he wants to sign the financial aid agreement, okay, he can sign that financial aid agreement, all right, while he's there and say he's committed. That financial aid agreement only binds us to him, not the other way around. So he could go to Ole Miss the next weekend and change his mind and sign theirs and still go there.
Hmm.
So they have all the
Yeah.
leverage. So unless they're going to change the rule of some sort, they're going to sign a financial aid agreement on signing day. They have to because you have to
But
put your name
that
on something
still
saying that you're
doesn't
getting.
bind them to the school. Not even for
It doesn't sound.
the
Yeah,
semester. It's got to be for the semester at least.
I haven't read them, so I can't speak on it. But it doesn't sound like it's going to bind. I think they're going to start treating it like the
Well,
transfer portal
okay, so
almost.
here's how they're gonna get them, dude. And this is like uh why I believe we're moving way closer to this being like a minor league with a salary cap. We're just moving towards that in but I think it's going to be the NIL that forces them into a contract. And I think that contract will be for until December, until early signing, until the first initial portal opens up in December. That's my thoughts. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's essentially what it is now. So you got to keep in mind. So say a kid signs in the early signing period. in early December, the 2nd through the 4th, right now, whatever the date is. And he signs that financial aid agreement. Okay. Well, obviously, there's some time, and say he's a January enrollee, right? Well, the second he steps foot in a class at that school, he's locked in till December, no matter what.
Oh, okay.
He's got to go to school there. He's got to go to school there through December. So he can't up in the middle of February. I mean, he can't up in the middle of February and go somewhere else. Now he can up in the middle of February and say, "Hey, when the portal opens, I'm leaving," but he's still going to be there till the end of the semester.
Right. But you're saying the spring portal, the April portal, he wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, same thing. Same
Okay.
difference. Even if he signs in the later signing period,
He's there till December.
if he signs in
That December portal.
yeah. The second you walk in a classroom, and go in there, you're there for that semester. Yeah. Now, whether 2 weeks in you say, all right, this ain't it, I'm not doing it, you're still gonna have to go to class and go through the semester there. You can't just up and leave and go to another school.
Yeah. So how do you feel like this is going to affect, like look at the UNLV situation. It's just not good for college football, right? Like, okay, fine. I get his
Right.
decision. That's, a decision he made. And if you're listening to this, you don't know the decision. It was a starting quarterback at UNLV. They were 4-0, I believe, at the time. Like they could be a playoff team this year. Because I think they even played Boise State and they played them close. And he decided to redshirt. It's like, what? And it was because of NIL. And so I'm thinking, they're going to sign this agreement, the financial aid agreement, but I do believe there's going to be another agreement that they're going to sign, and it's going to be around the NIL, and I believe it's going to protect the school and the player. Like the player still needs to have their ability to do what they want to do. Like I believe in that, and the player's got to get paid. But I do think it's going to stop. They've got to do something to stop that. Players redshirting, especially like great starters. And I mean, it's just bad, really bad for college football. And if you're watching this and you're a college football fan, and let's say your starting quarterback for your team did that, I mean, your season's over, essentially. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah. My opinion on that is you'll never be able to stop them from redshirting if they have a redshirt year, because you can't make them play.
Yeah, but the NIL, well,
So
I see what you.
the NIL can't make them play.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I will say this: even the last school I was at, we were obviously doing NIL at a decently high level, and I'll say this: everybody that's doing NIL right now at any kind of mediocre level is already doing like 6-month contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So they're signing them like semester to semester, right? And they're saying, and in those they're saying, okay, if you do X, Y, and Z, and there's obviously clauses in there, you can, the school has their outs, whereas it can be behavior, it can be stuff like that can trigger you not getting your money. It can be dates in there. If you leave before a certain date or enter the portal before a certain date, you don't get X, Y, Z money. So that's already happening right now. At most schools that have, a decent amount of NIL flowing, most of those schools are already doing NIL contracts that are very similar to that right now. So it's not going really for those schools. I don't think it'll be much different. I think they'll sign the financial aid agreement on signing day or whenever they choose to sign it, and then they'll also sign their NIL contract or agreement for that semester, whichever one it is, kind of simultaneously.
Yeah. So they'll still be signing
a lot of schools.
There'll still be signing days. They're still going to be signing 2 documents. It's just one of the names of one of the documents will be different.
That's how I see it going, because that's already happening.
Yeah.
Like at a lot of schools right now, eliminating the NLI, all it did was eliminate one of the documents. Because a lot of places they're still already signing financial aid agreements and they're signing an NIL contract.
Mm-hmm. How do you think this moves us? So real quick, and then I want to talk about future, but I do want to talk about for players right now. Still expect, if you're at the Power 4 level, G5 level, then expect the 2. You're going to have a financial aid agreement if it's a scholarship offer. Not just those level divisions, any division, excuse me, that's offering you athletic football
Yeah, if you're getting
scholarship.
any
Yeah.
athletic money.
But,
Yeah.
and then also, an NIL type agreement, right? To be prepared for that if you've been offered NIL, right? So still signing day is going to exist. It's going to be awesome. You're still going to, have the guys do the hats and all the cool things. By the way, did guys have you on edge when it was like between Arkansas, Ole Miss, LSU, like, or do you just not care?
Nah, most of the time. No, most of the time when big things were going on like that, and you were in it with a really big time player, he had already let the schools know who was it, and he would just kind of tell you to keep it to
Okay.
you wanted the kid,
So
so you
you
didn't
guys
want to
weren't
upset
like
him. So he would
watching them pick the hats
say,
and throw the hats and
nah, he'd be like, "Hey, coach, I'm coming." Now you might not find out till 30 minutes before, or an hour before, but 9 times out of 10, you already knew if you were getting
got
it or
it.
not.
All right. So anyways, they're doing and they got the two agreements. How do you see this change along with a lot of these changes with this settlement that we've even discussed on previous podcasts affect, you know, things like moving this more towards like a minor league with a salary cap, like a minor NFL, a mini NFL? Um,
Yeah, I mean it's heading quickly in that direction for a couple of reasons, and this may sound crazy to some people, but I'm just telling you it's the truth. When guys like Nick Saban and some of the old school coaches, that even weren't really on board with NIL even for a long time, and then it came about, and they were like, yeah, well, we want the kids to be compensated type guys that are kind of changing their mind a little bit. It's gotten so out of control that now they're on board with making it like that because that's the only way to have universal rules and everybody playing by the same, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
when people
crazy.
like him start talking about it, that like, hey, we're already doing the things that make you a minor league system. We need to operate like that to make it more efficient, right? So there's just too many powerful voices in the sport now that see where it's going and what is already occurring. So they're like, well, we're already doing it. The toothpaste is out of the tube. So why not make what we're doing much more
Right.
efficient and even across the board for everybody? So yeah, 100%. I don't know how fast that happens. I don't know the exact formula that is, but you just got way too many prominent figures in the sport wanting to head
Yeah.
that way.
I
So
mean, dude, with like here, I'll just do a quick prediction. Nobody cares, but this is just my prediction. Let's be real, nobody cares. I love college football. It's my favorite sport. It's the best sport.
yeah,
And
same.
anyways, so here's my thoughts. They got to create a super conference. There has to be. There has to be, and there'll probably be roughly like 25 teams, maximum 30 teams. And it'll consist of like your tops of your Big Ten, like the Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, I guess Indiana, like, their top 5, 6 programs, then probably the top like 12 programs from the SEC. And then you're going to have, a couple of the other programs from the Florida States, even though they're terrible this year. The Florida States, the Clemsons, the Miamis, right? Those like the bigger programs that have been prominent, and they're going to be about 25, 30 teams. And then there's going to be a 12-team playoff. And then from there, that league will have a salary cap. That league will operate. We're not going to have the conference championships anymore. It's not going to exist because it doesn't make sense. That's my prediction. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I think there's some traction for a similar model, maybe not exactly, but a similar super conference model. There's also a good one that I was supporting, before I got out when people were talking scenarios and things that kind of keep it somewhat the way it is, but the other than the Power Four just totally removing itself from the NCAA and governing itself, and everything below that, all the other divisions still be governed by the NCAA under that umbrella, but the Power Four breaking off completely, still keeping their conferences, and they can add schools just like they can now whenever they want. They can build their conference to as big as they want it to be. but keeping that the same, the Power Four separating itself, and then in the Power Four, your specific board of directors or commissioners or presidents, you set whatever the cap is for your conference, like what you feel comfortable with your NIL cap being. You set it by conference, and then that makes it across the board even for at least the people in your league. And then the argument was, well, the SEC and the Big Ten, will always have a bigger, pool of money than like the ACC, and some other, and the two other leagues. Well, not necessarily, not when the revenue sharing comes in. That changes the game, And even though the revenue sharing may be for ESPN or another league may be bigger, it won't change the salary cap. So whatever difference say it's $15 million a year per team in the SEC, and say the ACC doesn't think they can afford that, and they can only afford $10 million a year. Well, now with the revenue sharing and from the TV money, they can take $5 million from the TV money and add it to their salary cap to match the 15 of the SEC every year. So everybody would still be the same, and the kids would be getting the money from the revenue sharing and NIL. So I was kind of a fan of that model too. So I could see it going.
The problem with that though is the playoff isn't fair, right? You've got, like, even this year, like it's not having the 4 separate conferences and the lopsidedness of the conferences, not just at the top, but the depth. It makes the playoff unfair. So anyways, that's a conversation and argument for another day.
They just got to recruit better. I don't know what to tell everybody. Like, you know what I'm saying? You got to go get better players.
So that makes sense. All right, cool. So listen, for all of you watching and wanting to learn about signing day, it's not canceled. It's still happening. The agreements that will be signed will be the financial aid agreement if you're on scholarship, or and as well as an NIL contract if you're getting funding for that. So, hope this video provided you value and you got value from this podcast. Feel free to subscribe. Leave us a review and a comment, depending on where you're at, so that we can make more, right? What you share with us in your reviews and your comments, let us know what you're looking for topics, and we can continue to make content that you value. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks for being here, Brian.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Scholarship Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And for more free resources, or if you're interested in working with us, visit gonextplay.com. Until next time.